Sadly, Loki Season 2 has come to an end, and in this video I'm going to recap the events of the finale and talk about two very interesting takeaways that we got out of this episode. There are definitely spoilers ahead, so consider yourself warned, and let's jump in. We open back at the TVA with Timely attempting to make it down the gangway to save the loom, and no matter what Loki does to speed things up, he can't seem to get Timely out there soon enough. So Loki spends literal centuries learning everything OB knows so he can speed things up and get Timely out in time. Finally, after likely hundreds of tries, the crew finally succeeds at saving the loom and in turn the entire universe, or so it seems. OB tells Loki the loom is actually overloading again because there are just too many branches. Timely says the branches of time are duplicating and expanding at an infinite rate, and that it's a scaling problem that simply cannot be accommodated for. Loki realizes now that this effort has essentially been a lost cause, but seems to get an idea when Sylvie says, as soon as the timeline started branching, this was doomed to happen. We then see Loki go back to the finale of Season 1 when Sylvie was attempting to kill He Who Remains, and he tells Sylvie she doesn't want this because he's seen how it all plays out. It's at this point that we again observe Loki trying again and again to get things to end up the way he'd like, but he can't seem to make it happen. Finally, He Who Remains pauses things and has a conversation with Loki and tells him that the temporal loom is a failsafe and that when it's overloaded, it deletes what shouldn't be there. He then says the TVA is collateral damage and it's easy to rebuild. He Who Remains goes on to say his variants are already out there and that the outcome remains the same no matter what. Loki will lose, to which Loki replies, I know. Loki then spots something on the wall and says, I'll change the equation. I'll break your loom. And He Who Remains says the loom prevents a war where no one survives. He then says, every moment of peace you've ever experienced is because I was here at the end of time keeping watch, and that he's providing mercy. Loki doesn't buy it and says that he'll find another way. He Who Remains gives Loki two options: destroy the timeline and everyone in existence, or kill Sylvie. Loki then travels back to when he was first captured and is being interrogated by Mobius. He asks how they decide who lives and who dies, and Mobius tells a story about Rennslayer pruning variants and how you have to keep the big picture in mind. Mobius then says Rennslayer knew that the hard thing to do was the thing that had to be done, and by hard, he meant impossible. There's no comfort, you just choose your burden. Loki thanks him and then returns to the alternate OB's place where everyone disappears, and he tells Sylvie that he's tried everything and he's out of options. Sylvie understands that for things to remain, Loki must kill her before she kills He Who Remains, but Sylvie says sometimes it's okay to destroy something. Loki then says if there's a hope that you can replace that thing with something better. He then heads back to where we were at the beginning of the episode, where he had tried so many times to save the loom. This time he heads down the gangway himself and says he knows what kind of god he needs to be. He heads out onto the gangway and we witness an awesome transformation back into his Loki garb just before he destroys the loom on purpose. He then begins casting a sort of magic into the timelines and he ascends into some sort of portal and disappears when Sylvie says, he's giving us a chance. Loki is then seen at the end of time, alone, attempting to fix things as he carries handfuls of timelines to the throne of He Who Remains. He seems to slam them together and we zoom out to observe a new structure of time, which quite clearly resembles Yggdrasil, the world tree, which is an energy field that supports and connects the 10 realms. This tree is quite common in the comics, and we even catch a glimpse of it in Across the Spider-Verse. Yggdrasil's first appearance in Marvel Comics was way back in 1963, published in Journey into Mystery. Here, Yggdrasil is depicted as a massive tree standing at the center of the Marvel Universe, connecting all realms. As the Marvel Universe expanded and interdimensional crossovers became more common, the World Tree's role also evolved to become a symbol of the multiverse. So I do believe what Loki has done here will be the primary catalyst taking us into the next chapter of the MCU with things like this upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine crossover, and much more. As things wind down in the episode, we see that Rennslayer is still alive in some alternate timeline with a destroyed TVA, but just before we cut away, there are flashes of purple. Purple, of course, being the color of Kang, which does lead me to believe Kang is definitely not gone, which makes sense considering the next Avengers movie, Kang Dynasty. I've seen some people theorizing that the purple flashes was actually Alioth coming to kill Rennslayer, but I don't buy it. I feel pretty confident that that's actually going to end up being Kang. The episode wraps up with Sylvie bidding farewell to Mobius as he ventures back into his life before the TVA. Honestly, this could be the series finale. This was so perfectly yet heart-wrenchingly concluded. I mean, the whole time we have Loki driven by this desire to save his friends so that he could be with them, and then he has to make the decision to go be alone forever just to give them life. It feels like continuing the Loki series at this point has major potential to ruin the greatness that we've had up to this point. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to have more Loki as long as it stays at this level, but we've all seen time and time again when showrunners take a great thing and just run it into the ground, and I really don't want that to happen here. So overall, this season has been a blast. Keep an eye out for my upcoming review video where I'm gonna review this entire season and kind of compare it to how I thought the first season was. Thank you all for watching. I hope to see you in future videos. See you next time.